Something that I've heard you say many times, and I don't know where you originally heard this, but I use it all the time because it really explains things to clients. Don't retire from something, retire to something. Have a plan. We're not talking about the financial plan part, but have a plan for what you want to do when you retire. If you want to work, God love you. And you mentioned, are there charities that you enjoy that maybe they could use your help? I can tell you right now, every charity always needs more help.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them need more money. Some of them don't need more money, but they always need volunteers. So if that's what brings you joy, then go do it. That's exactly what we would want you to do, right? And if it means giving money away, all we ask is that you give it away the correct way, because we don't want to give any to the IRS if we don't have to.
If you have a disinterested spouse, you should be working with an advisor, because if something were to happen to the interested spouse, the disinterested spouse could be screwed.
Yeah.
And they need someone to know where all the bodies are buried.
I love that phrase. I'm so glad you said that.
They need to know. And I've got a couple clients that are widows that came to us as widows that I never met their husbands.
Right.
They were the disinterested spouse, and they have no idea of truly how much money they have. And they don't know how to do money. They have no concept of money. They didn't do anything. They were so disinterested because their husband or their spouse took care of those things that they never worried about it. And now when they're in a position to have to worry about it, not only are they worried about it, they are anxious.
Panicked.
They are panicked.
Yeah.
They are freaking out about it, and they don't know how to handle it because they never had to handle it before. Welcome back to another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour with Eric Douglas, Chris Vaughn, Family Wealth Planning Partners here in Louisville, Kentucky. Beautiful spring day in Louisville, Kentucky, and we just got done talking about how I don't even know if when I call it spring, or on like a third winter right now.
Third winter, second spring.
Something like that. All I know is
fall.
All I know is we went into the 80s the other day, and we're back down into the 40s and 50s, and my allergies do not know what in the world is going on.
And so back into the 70s this weekend.
Yeah. So if I sound a little nasally or congested today, that is why. It is all allergies.
Welcome to Kentucky.
Well, welcome to exactly. Welcome to Kentucky during the change of season, right? This is just kind of a biannual tradition for us as we go from winter to spring and summer to fall, right?
Yeah.
With that being said, so pretty cool topic today. And this was the genesis of, I think, some conversations that we had with some of our clients in the past couple of weeks. And it kind of led into really how we came up with some of the rebranding that we've done here recently.
Okay.
And so we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before. And if you're any of our clients, you've heard us talk about this. And we've talked about, the idea of our rebranding really for the last several years.
Yeah.
But the concept of doing life on purpose, that's really become our new tagline within our company and within our conversations and within the way that we structure retirement and income plans for our clients. Really, the idea is we want you doing life in retirement. We want you focused on the things that bring you joy. We want you to focus on living, on doing life, right? We don't want you focused on CNBC and Fox Business and watching the fluctuations of the market every day.
Right.
That should not be your concern. You should be focused on your financial matters 2-3 times a year when you're in our office, to have kind of your annual or biannual meetings with us as we kind of run through the plan and go through the numbers. But ultimately, we want you to have the confidence, right? We want you to feel good about going to spend your money in retirement to go do the things that bring you joy, because you've only got so long to last in retirement, right? And you've been saving a lifetime. You've been saving all this money over the course of your lifetime. And we encourage you to go enjoy it and to do something with it. And if you have anything to leave a legacy with, and that's part of what you want to do that brings you joy, we'll build that into the plan too. Absolutely, right? So that's really the idea behind Do Life on Purpose. We want you to do life. We obviously want you to do it on purpose, but we want you to do it within the context of a plan, right? So you can feel comfortable doing it. Well, some of the conversations that we've had recently, I think, speak very, very well to that concept that really illustrates why we came up with this kind of rebrand and why we purposely, kind of molded our company within the ideals of that framework, right? So I know we both have a couple here, but I'll go ahead and let you start with the first one. And actually, we need to introduce...
Well, let's start with some bourbon.
We need to introduce the bourbons.
Happy hour.
We need to introduce the bourbons today because we're doing a little bit of a tasting. And so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so on our last episode, we did this incredible Green River foolproof weeded bourbon that
Which,
both of us just went, wow, that's incredible.
and it's
right?
worth noting, we opened this bottle on the
Yes, we did.
podcast,
And that was
it's
2
almost
weeks ago.
and it's almost gone now because
We-
we have had a couple pour since that last podcast.
Full disclosure, we
Yep.
did have an open house here at the office. And when it got later in the day and we were watching the first round of basketball games, I did put this one out on the table and it was very popular.
Well, I made a comment to you about that should not be out.
Right.
We need to go hide that one.
But that's the beauty of it. This is, at least in Louisville, this is pretty easy to find.
Very
Certainly
easy,
all the
yep.
big boxes have got it. The smaller retailers, no doubt, are getting it. And it's $49.
Yeah.
Right? This is not an expensive bourbon. But we also made the comment, you know what? This is clearly designed to compete with Weller.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the comment that this is a foolproof bourbon and it's designed to compete with Weller foolproof. That's the blue label. But a friend of mine pointed it out to me. He said, this is 109.3 proof. That's not Weller foolproof. That's closer to Weller Antique 107.
Yes.
So only 2 difference there. Also a weeded bourbon. So although it's distilled at 114 and then they cut it down to 107, we figured it would be a good idea to put these side by side. Let's see, Weller 107 retail on this, I think, is only $50, but you're not going to find it for that unless you go to the distillery where it is now part of the rotation.
Sure.
But the Green River, on the other hand, is readily available. So let's put them side by side. Now, we know this is not blind. We know which glass is which one's which. Now, just full disclosure for anybody who's watching and happens to see the logo. These glasses were a gift from a client. They say Heaven Hill on them. Neither one of these is a Heaven Hill product. So it is what it is. So the one with the Heaven Hill logo on it is the Green River. The one without any logos on it is the Weller. So that's what we're drinking today. And then we're going to talk about not if we like one better than the other, but is this Green River really in the same league as probably one of the most popular bourbons in the world at any price, which is the Weller line.
That's certainly the idea, and we've both had both of these before.
Oh, absolutely. And full disclosure, for those of you who don't know, the most famous unicorn bourbon out there is Pappy Van Winkle, and there's a series of them. Pappy Van Winkle and Weller Juice are identical. They're aged differently, and the Van Winkles come in and pick what they're going to take first. But they are, in theory, exactly the same thing. So that's what we're talking about here. Okay? All right. Ready to talk about doing?
Absolutely. Let's talk about doing life and doing it on purpose.
Okay.
Specifically in retirement and feeling good about it, right?
Yeah.
So you had a couple stories, so I'll let you take the first one. But you met with the clients. You had like 3 stories in the last week, though. That really taught our philosophy.
I had 3 of these in 1 week. Just one of those bizarre things. Now, one of them, they're not retired yet, but they're getting ready to here in the next few years. But they are living well below their means, and they're concerned about when they retire, what are we going to do? And my attitude is pretty much anything you want to, right? Because we've built out the plan. That's actually kind of the point. The other 2 were interesting. They're both widows who have been widowed long enough that they're now moving on with life. One of them in particular, she came in, she gave me the best compliment I have ever had as an advisor. You're not going to top this. She came in and she said, well, there's a couple things that I'd like to go do. Oh, great. What are we talking about? And she said, well, if you remember, I really stepped out on a limb a year or so ago. And she went on a cruise. And she didn't just go on any cruise. She went on a Viking River cruise. She was so excited about it. All right, if you know anything about cruising,
hoity-toity,
you're in the top levels there. When you get into the Vikings, those are the expensive ones. And she had such a good time. And she said, Chris, I knew when I did that was one time. I'm never going to get to do that again.
Well, where did she go?
She went to the Rhine River.
Okay.
Right? Okay, that's on my bucket list. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And she said, I would love to go do something like that again, but I know that was a once in a lifetime kind of thing. And I said, why? Why is it a once in a lifetime thing? So we went back through her plan and I said, remember the point of doing the plan the way that we did it, building out that income strategy instead of the old school 4% rule,
Yep.
was so that you could go do life. I've had discussions with both of her kids. They don't want her money. They're doing fine, right? The idea here is not to leave the money behind. The idea is to go enjoy it, to do, as we like to say, to do life on purpose. And we sat here and looked at it. I said, you know what? You're going to do this other Viking cruise. I said, where do you want to go? She said, I want to go to Norway. And I'm sitting there going, that sounds awesome. I mean, that really does. Do a cruise down the fjords in Norway. So I said, well, how much money are we talking about? And she said, whatever the number was. And I went, okay, go do it. And she looked at me like, like I was an alien or something. I showed her the numbers. I said, you have the money to do this. The purpose of this money is to do it. And by the way, there's no risk to your income not being there month in and month out. This is part of the extra money that we had set aside. And we did the greatest thing that you do in a meeting. We had tears, happy tears, right?
Yeah.
You had to get the box of tissues out. And she said, you are the answer to prayers. You are never going to get a compliment better than that, right? So now it's like I'm almost having to go for the tissues. I've just been told I'm an answer to prayer. Not really. We did this all along.
Mm-hmm.
We built the plan out so that she could go do her life and enjoy it and do the things that bring her joy, as you just said a few minutes ago. Those are the kind of things that we want people to do, is to actually go out and enjoy it. And now she's going to enjoy it and not feel guilty and not feel like she's taking a risk that if I go spend this money, am I going to have enough to last?
Well, and I think that's really the purpose of using the term on purpose, right? Because it's not just about going out and doing life. It's not just about going out and blowing all of your money.
Right.
The idea is to go do it on purpose, to do it purposefully. Mm-hmm. What is it that you want to do, and do it, put a plan behind it, feel comfortable doing it, but, make a conscious effort to go do the things that you enjoy. Don't just kind of go do it on a whim, right? That's not what necessarily this is about. It's about planning ahead. Obviously, what we do is planning at the heart of everything that we do. But, having some fun, building fun into your plan.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of all of this. So yes, that's an absolutely fantastic story. The one I had, somewhat similar conversation. But it was a client of ours, and I don't want to say a client of mine, because all of our clients are
right.
They're firm clients, right?
You're the quarterback,
but there has to be a quarterback, right? So one of the clients I'm quarterback on, wonderful lady. She's a single woman. She's in her early 70s, and she lost her job unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. And as she was driving home, as she lost her job, and when she found out about it, it was after working hours. And so she said she was driving home that night, and she said the entire time she was driving home after losing her job, she'd heard nothing but my voice in her ear telling her that she was able to retire at any time, and she was going to be okay. And she said the only reason she got any sleep that night was because of the conversations that we had previously. This is going back several years, right? I've been telling her for several years, if you want to continue to work, by all means, do so. If it brings you joy, continue to work, but you don't have to. And she had heard me say that so many times that night after she did lose her job, that's the only reason she was able to sleep, was because all of the planning that we had done ahead of that time, that I had instilled in her the belief that she would be just fine. So she called me the next morning and we had a conversation. Mm-hmm. Obviously very sorry to hear about her losing her job, but I really wasn't, because she didn't love the job.
Right.
She didn't love the job. She wasn't doing it. She honestly just hadn't quit because she was still kind of scared, to be mm-hmm. perfectly blunt, about, losing the source of income and just a change. It wasn't necessarily that she was worried about losing the income, but it was just a change in her lifestyle, a change in her life. And for a lot of people, that can be a very daunting thing to think about. Not everyone faces the idea of change, the prospect of change in their life, with the same, level of passion, right? Some people treat it as with a lot of anxiety. So she was obviously a little worried about it, a little bit anxious about it. But we talked, we ran through the numbers again. And as we were sitting there going through the numbers, she just kept telling me that, she was unbelievably thankful for the work that we had done, and how much more comfortable she felt after speaking with me about losing her job. And that way, once we kind of got past the numbers part, because she mentioned going back to work again, and I said, let me stop you there. Before you start talking about going back to work again, what is it that you want to do? Like truly, what is it that you really want to do? Do you even want to go back to work? Because I'm telling you right now, you don't need to work. You're fine between your Social Security and the other stuff. You're fine. You don't have a need to go back to work. And actually, one of the other things that she was concerned about, because we've been doing QCDs, qualified charitable distributions, because she's very, very charitable. She's tithing, her 10% to the church, for lack of a better term, religiously. But she's been doing that for faithfully, absolutely faithfully. She's been doing that for her entire lifetime, right? So, but she was actually very concerned that she was going to have to go ahead and quit doing that now that she lost her income. I said, no, absolutely not. And I said, do you want to increase it? We can increase it. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, this is the numbers. And we kind of ran through the plan, but it doesn't affect your income. If we need to turn on an income stream for you, you're going to be okay. So when we started talking about increasing her tithing to the church, she was a little taken aback. But going back to the point of the conversation, was like, what is it that you want to do? Because she had actually come to me with another charity that she had in mind where she was thinking about donating some money that was important to her.
Right.
I said, well, how about this? Have you thought about, maybe calling this charity that you're wanting to give money to? Have you thought about maybe calling them and seeing if they need any help? I don't know if if they have any part-time positions open. I'm sure they probably do. But maybe make a few bucks on the side as a part-time employee, doing something for an organization that you really care about, or even just volunteering your time if you're not making any money. Surely this volunteer organization has something that you can do for them. And she's like, yeah, well, I
didn't think about that.
Pretty good idea. Never really thought about it that way. I said, yeah, just, what you should do? Take a couple months. Just take a couple months, settle into a new normal, see if you even really want to go back to work.
Right.
And if you do, kind of dip your toes back in. You never know what's going to present itself in the next couple of months. Now that you're kind of available and open to new opportunities, I guarantee that God will probably bring something into your life that you're not expecting. Because I told her before, I was like, listen, every time I've had, some door shut on me in my lifetime, there's always been a window that opened immediately after. I have so many stories like that from my own personal life experiences. Part of the reason I'm here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A big part of the reason why I'm here and while we're doing this company together, right? But she's like, yeah, I never really thought about that. That's amazing. And so now she's kind of in this transition period where she's taking some time and she's not rushing into her next decision, and she's going to try to do a better job of being present and enjoying her new normal and figuring out what that new normal is.
Right.
But having the freedom to be able to change that new normal if something were to present itself that she's truly passionate about.
Something that I've heard you say many times, and I don't know where you originally heard this, but I use it all the time because it really explains things to clients. Don't retire from something, retire to something. Have a plan. We're not talking about the financial plan part, but have a plan for what you want to do when you retire. If you want to work, God love you. And you mentioned, are there charities that you enjoy that maybe they could use your help? I can tell you right now, every charity always needs more help.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them need more money. Some of them don't need more money, but they always need volunteers. So if that's what brings you joy, then go do it. That's exactly what we would want you to do, right? And if it means giving money away, all we ask is that you give it away the correct way, because we don't want to give any to the IRS if we don't have to, right? That's where the whole QCD thing is from. So one of the other conversations that I had that kind of leads into that. So I have a couple where they are both clients, but he is what we call a disinterested spouse. And you know what I mean by that phrase.
It's amazing how often one of
the couple is what we call a disinterested spouse. They just don't care. Maybe they come to the meetings, maybe they don't. They want the spouse to take care of it. And you would think, well, that's usually the wife is the disinterested spouse. I'd say no, it's closer to 50-50 from my experience anyway.
Sure.
But anyway, he works for a major company here in town. He is within a couple of years of retiring, he thinks. So I'm talking to her about it. And I said, well, why did we think we're within a couple of years of retirement? Well, because he's been talking to some of the guys at work, and they've been giving him some advice on the way he should invest his 401k.
Oh,
And it just makes you
yeah.
want to start bouncing your head off. Now,
Is it bad that I might be able to even guess the company that this guy works for?
go for it. Give it a shot.
I'm not. I don't want to say it out loud.
It's a major employer here in town, and they are known by their initials.
Okay,
How's
yeah.
that? So you know exactly what I'm
I know
talking
exactly
about.
which one it is. Yes.
Now, this is a huge employer.
Yeah.
I will tell you when I say he's getting advice from a lot of his coworkers on what he should do financially. Okay.
Well, that company has internal Slack discussions.
They do, but
yeah,
the people that he's getting advice from, according to his wife, now
sure.
he's the disinterested spouse. She's the one who runs the money in their house, which is fine. She works part-time, and quite frankly, she's good at keeping track of things, and she enjoys this part. I said, how old are the people that he's getting advice from? And he said, well, most of them are in their 30s and early 40s, right? He's 60, a little bit different. And
was the advice YOLO at all on Bitcoin? Or
yes, I heard the words Bitcoin. There were several others, and you know exactly what the tag words are. By the way, they are mechanics.
Yeah.
Right. So nothing bad against mechanics, but I know my way around under the hood of a car better than most. You do not want me repairing your car, right? That's not my expertise. And he's hearing all these people, and they're telling him, you're going to have to work for another 5 or 10 years, and you should be investing in Bitcoin, and you should be doing all this crazy aggressive stuff. And the first thing I said to her was, you go home and you tell him I said this. Stop getting your advice from TikTok, because that's probably where they're getting it from. And she laughed. I said, here's what it comes down to. What are you going to do when you retire? And she said, well, we really don't know. And I said, then he shouldn't retire yet. Mm-hmm. But that's her homework that I gave her for her next meeting. I said, what do you want to do? And she said, well, I saw that map that you all put up in the front of the lobby. And I mean, she teed that one up for me, right?
Yeah.
I said, where do you want to go? And she said, we actually don't want to travel exotically, but I would love to go see all 50 states. Outstanding. I think that's a fantastic idea.
You get all the climates within our own country.
Exactly. Yep. And now there were a couple. She said, I'd like to go to Italy or something like that, but I'd be okay if I didn't. But I'd like to see as many of the 50 states as I could. And I've got the plan, and the numbers are up on the screen in front of her. And I said, then do it. And tell him you can do it. Why don't you tell me? Your homework is, where do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Right? Because he can retire exactly when he planned on, which is about 2 years from now. And you're golden, right? They don't have any debts. They don't have a whole lot of things that they are, that they have to spend their money on. Go do it. And we had the whole conversation. We met for an hour and 15 minutes. 15 minutes of that was reviewing numbers. The rest of it, we talked about, okay, where do you want to go? What order do you want to do them in? And she's kind of plotting this out. And she saw the video about driving down the road from Glacier National Park all the way down into Utah and all that stuff. And she said, that just sounds awesome. Then go do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was something that it was a revelation to her, because it didn't dawn on her that she had the ability. Right. And that's kind of where we're going with the rebranding, is trying to convince people you have sacrificed and not spent for 20, 30, 40 years so that you could go do these things. The idea is not to see who dies with the most toys, right? It's go enjoy your life. Do the things that bring you joy. That's why you make these sacrifices.
And it's interesting too, because when you get into retirement, you obviously have to get over the anxiety of paying yourself in income. And so there's that transition period. And then there's the ability to actually feel comfortable doing it. Mm-hmm. And then feel comfortable maybe, now I feel comfortable taking those bigger trips. Now I feel comfortable spending maybe a little extra money on the car I've always wanted, right? The midlife crisis car that you never got.
The midlife crisis mobile, that's what we call it.
Whatever it is, right? But you never really totally feel comfortable doing that until you finally do. But by the time you really start to feel comfortable with it, are you really going to feel healthy enough or energetic enough to go take that trip to Europe and go
Right.
do all of that walking. I use my mom as an example. She got back from Italy several months back. She'd always wanted to go, had never been, and it was kind of a bucket list trip for her. And she went with a big group of people. And one of the first things she did when she got home was talking about some of the, other people on the trip that really probably should not have been on the trip because they couldn't really travel very well. They couldn't really take care of themselves. They were older and they needed help with everything. And they just really probably shouldn't have been going on a European vacation, right? So it's one thing to think about some of these things. Like if you have things on your bucket list, you want to make sure you do them while you are still, to be perfectly frank, young enough to enjoy them, young enough and healthy enough to be able to enjoy them. And we can, not to be depressing, right? But we've got a myriad of stories of clients that, have passed away unexpectedly.
Right.
And, life happens. That's why we want you to go do life, because life will happen to you if you're not doing it. And so we want to make sure you are enjoying the opportunities that you have in front of you with the resources that you've accumulated throughout your life. It's just really, really important to us that our clients enjoy it, right? Because we can also riddle you with stories of people that didn't do some of those things and passed away with a lot of money that they never used. There's a lot of money left on the table that they did not get to enjoy. Now their kids will, grandkids. That's fantastic too.
I love the kids and the grandkids, and I love passing on. But they didn't make the sacrifices for that. And most of the ones that I work with, when I talk to the adult kids, they don't want mom and dad's money. They want you to go enjoy it.
Well, and usually it's because mom and dad sacrificed throughout their lifetime for the kids so much already that the kids are in such a better position than their mom and dad ever were themselves, right? So, enjoy the things that you can while you're still able to do it. I'll add one more thing too, because we talked about the disinterested spouse, and we were not going to talk about this, but since you brought it up, we see it a lot, disinterested spouses. Oh gosh,
yes.
And it's very, very important if you are not the disinterested spouse. This is whether or not you're a client of ours. Because actually, one thing I will add, if you have a disinterested spouse, you should be working with an advisor.
Oh, absolutely.
100% you should be working with an advisor. Because if something were to happen to the interested spouse, the disinterested spouse could be screwed.
Yeah.
And they need someone to know where all the bodies are buried.
I love that phrase. I'm so glad you said that.
They need to know. And I've got a couple clients that are widows that came to us as widows that I never met their husbands.
Right.
They were the disinterested spouse.
I've got a couple of those too.
They were the disinterested spouse, and they have no idea of truly how much money they have. And they don't know how to do money. They have no concept of money. They didn't do anything. They were so disinterested because their husband or their spouse took care of those things that they never worried about it. And now when they're in a position to have to worry about it, not only are they worried about it, they are anxious.
Panicked.
They are panicked.
Yeah.
They are freaking out about it. And they don't know how to handle it because they never had to handle it before. And they don't know how to, they don't feel comfortable doing it. And even when they work with someone, there's still a transition period of feeling comfortable that someone else is actually looking out for their best interest. So if you are the interested spouse, let me say that one, you should absolutely be working with someone for the benefit of your disinterested spouse, but also you need to be making sure that you are letting your disinterested spouse know where everything is at. Right. And I'm saying this as someone who is the interested spouse. I mean, I'm in the business, right? So I am the interested spouse. My wife handles so much around the house, but finances is not one of them. But I have to sit her down occasionally just to give her kind of a balance sheet and let her know where, okay, if something were to happen to me, this is where everything's at. And this is where you need to go. And this is who you need to talk to, et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, yeah, okay. Just, is it written down? Okay. But
you just said it. Is it written down?
But we have the conversation. She knows who to go to. Yep. Obviously I have partners that can handle all this stuff. Right. But she is the disinterested spouse, but at least I'm doing my part as the interested spouse to make sure that she knows where to go and what resources are available to her to make sure that she's taken care of if something were to happen to me.
Yeah.
So,
and my wife and I are in the same boat. I actually had an experience with a client that I brought on several years back after she lost her husband. She was referred to me, and she was that disinterested spouse, right? And she didn't know where anything was. She didn't know who to call if there was something broken around the house. right? If the dishwasher didn't work, she didn't know what to do because he had always taken care of those things. And we spent a lot of time getting debts paid off and doing all those things, and her learning how to manage it. But then the next transition was, okay, now how do you go do life without, in this case, without your husband? How do you go about doing that? You are going to kind of rethink the world. Well, by the way, she's retired. She's loving life. She is remarried at this point in time. But the point was, if you're the interested spouse, make sure that somebody knows how to take care of your spouse if you die first, and then still transition into that, go enjoy your life, right? You don't have to be miserable for the rest of your life. That's not the way this is supposed to work.
Uh-huh.
So, all right.
You had one more story, right?
You know what? I probably did, and I don't remember off the top of my head
Don't
what
remember.
it was.
Did we just start going off on tangents
Yeah,
about
that's
spouses?
that's what we do.
Yep.
I was going to point out, you were talking about in your situation, making sure that your wife actually knows where everything is. I went through this with my wife several years ago because I took care of everything financially. Um, and I said, here's what I want to do. I want to make sure once a month you just see where everything is when I'm sitting there paying the bills and everything. It got to the point where she took it over. Now she runs the household business and I run the business.
Yeah.
Right. Now she has to log everything where I know where it is if something happens to her. And by the way, it's a really good balance for us. It's something that, for the people who are listening that are in a similar situation, that works. But the whole point is both of us know if something happens to the other one, where to go. And by the way, our kids know what to do if something happens to both of us, right? Even though both of my kids are legally adults, their behavior suggests they're not really adults yet. So, but they know where to go. They know where everything's written down. They know who to talk to because I have an advisor, right? I've got several of them actually. They know who to go to and get all that done. So great advice. Make sure that somebody knows where all the bodies are buried, figuratively, if something were to happen to you. So
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, these are some really great examples of why we've put together the philosophy that we have.
exactly.
And how we do business the way that we do. Because just to be perfectly frank, I love throwing our industry under a bus.
Yep.
A lot of times. Because our industry, it helps a lot of people, does a lot of wonderful things, but there's also some things about our industry that kind of bug me. One of them is that there's so much of focus on saving and investing that there's not enough of a focus on spending.
That's right.
And that's where do life is really the root of doing life is in spending your money to do the things that you want to do. No one focuses on spending in our industry. They talk about saving and accumulating and investments and growing and all the things that you do. And that's why people get, I think, so anxious when they get into retirement, because all they've ever heard all their life is save, invest, right? Leave it alone, let it accumulate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a different skill set. It's a different framework to draw income from your own investments. And people just don't feel comfortable doing it because the industry has never taught them how to do it.
Right.
And that's really where we come into play. And I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart from really most other firms out there that I'm familiar with, that we really come across on an everyday basis. And that's the root of what we do, because, we've just had enough of these conversations over the years where people just felt so anxious about spending their own money.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We've been taught save,
Yeah.
right? People my age, our parents were children of the 30s and early 40s when they didn't have much. So that was beat into our heads that you got to save. And that's the reason our parents tended to be hoarders, because they didn't throw anything away. You never know when you might need that, right? Yeah. Then you couple that mentality with, I'm going to beat up on our industry, advisors whose real purpose, they are investment advisors strictly, right? Their whole purpose is to gather assets as much as they possibly can, and then to make sure that those assets never go away, which means they're not spending it. They tend to be really good at accumulation, but when somebody retires,
they're probably good at investing.
Right. They go to the 4% rule because they don't know any better, right? And we've talked about the 4% rule before. I'm working with some clients that were referred to us several months back that they've been retired for quite some time. and they've been with a major company. You know the name. I will not say who it is, but it's based in Minnesota. But anyway, that narrowed it down to about 50 of them, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say that's still wide up there.
But they were told you can't spend this money because if you do, it will affect your income. And they are not living well. I sat there and looked at it. It's like there's no reason why. Sure enough, they're on a 4% plan. And if they wanted to take out a little extra money, they were told, well, then everything's going to fall apart.
Can't afford that.
I have no doubt that the advisor was not, I don't think the advisor was being disingenuous, right? I think the advisor didn't know a better way to do it because the advisor is strictly an investment advisor. The 4% rule is just the standard, and this company is known for it. They didn't know what else to do. And that's where I went into our philosophy. What's the purpose of this? It's not to leave behind the same or more money than you started retirement with. It's to actually enjoy the money. Now, it is when you have a good retirement plan, the problem is we don't know how long you're going to live, right? So we do have to build the plan out so that it'll last longer than you not knowing what that number is, right? But the whole point is while you're here, because you don't know how long it's going to last, right? You don't know if you're going to be in a car accident or have a medical event next week. Go enjoy it. Go do your life now. That's why your plan has to be built out with that intent, as opposed to maintaining a dollar amount so that you can live off the interest.
Yep. Doing it responsibly, of course. But that's where the planning comes into play. So you can feel comfortable doing some of these things. Right.
So all right.
Let's talk bourbon.
Let's talk bourbon. So I want your opinion. I have one.
Oh, I have one too.
I can tell the difference between the two.
I can tell the difference. They're similar.
They are very
similar.
First,
I'll just start off with it.
Okay.
They're both delicious.
Outstanding. Right?
So let's just start with that as a basic.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, what I'm about to say, I never would have thought would ever come out of my mouth. Man, I think I like that Green River better.
Really? Okay. That's fantastic, by the way, because it's cheaper.
Well, it's cheaper. It's more accessible. It's actually hotter. So it's 109.
Yes.
But it's smoother. It goes down to me, it goes down a little bit more smoothly. They both have a really good nose. They both smell incredible. Mm-hmm. The Weller, I don't want to say harsh, but it's a little more harsh than what Green River is. Green River goes, that's smooth, man.
See, I got exactly the opposite. Okay, to your point, if this was a blind test, I think I could have told you the difference, but they're so close.
I don't know. I don't think I would have been able to tell you the difference if I hadn't known what they were.
I got just a little bit more of a spicy note on the Green River than I did on the Weller. The Weller had more of a honey flavor. Interestingly enough, I put 1 drop of water in both just to see what it would do. It did not improve the Green River at all. If anything, it hurt it. Yeah. It actually made the Weller taste that much more honey, even brought out a little bit of a spicy note. But I think we just proved the perfect example. These are both outstanding. And if you've got access to both of them, whichever one's cheaper is the one you should buy because they're both pretty outstanding.
I think it just solidifies our review of Green River last time.
Yes, it does.
And how good we really truly think it is, because I'm putting it right next to
an absolute tried and true.
Nobody in the bourbon community is going to say anything bad about Weller Red Label. Right?
No, they're not. That's right.
And it's a fantastic drink, and this is by all means standing up right next to it, and if not,
it is holding its own
100% at a minimum, holding its own.
I'm trying to put the two side by side as many times as I can.
Well, I've been going side by side the whole time, but man,
they are pretty close, and they're both outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, both wheated bourbons, both 107, 109, similar, and they're both delicious. But I mean, if I was going to pick one, it'd be Green River.
Okay, so that makes me want to try something else. That makes me want to bust that Blue Label out and put it up against that Green River. I'm pretty sure the Blue Label would win, but we need to do that one blind. Green River can hold its own against Antique 107, which is an absolute. You said it. There is no bourbon person out there that's going to say anything negative. No 107, right? But the foolproof Weller, the Blue Label, I have been around a lot of people who have serious collections, and they will tell you that they will put that Weller Blue Label up against anything that they own.
Yeah, it's
at
been
any
so
price.
long. It's been so long since I've had Blue Label.
So
it's fantastic.
I sense another challenge coming on. It just so happens that I might be able to get my hands on some Blue Label because, well,
you have some.
it's here. So that's going to have
We'll have to
happen.
do that at some point. I don't want to turn this podcast into a Green River commercial either, but
no, but it is. Oh wow, well done. I mean, that's really good. Really, really good. If you can compete with Weller, you've done something, and this one absolutely stands there.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was the point. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But boy, they did it.
Yeah, it's really good. So.
Really, really well done. And not to take anything away from Weller. Weller is outstanding bourbon.
Oh, you 100%. So, well, with that being said, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
If you are retiring from something, let's put your plan together first. Let's think about what we want to do with our life. What do you want to enjoy, right? You don't have to do what your neighbor does. If you come in here and you look at our big map that's up on the wall and you see all the pins for where our clients have been, that's not necessarily for you. But you do need to have some kind of plan for what do you want to do? What brings you joy? We work with a lot of teachers, and every teacher that I've ever talked to wants to retire earlier than what people outside of that industry do. And I've never spoken to one of them that wants to retire and do nothing. Most of them want to go work doing something else. Great. What do you want to do? Plan that out and then have a plan of attack so that you can go do that life.
Yep. Well said. Good place to wrap up.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube with us, we appreciate it. Leave us a review, comment, share our material with anyone that you think might enjoy anything that we have to say about doing life and doing it with purpose. We greatly appreciate you joining us, and until next time.